him father?
He is the father of the faithful in that he had faith before he was circumcised. It's not circumcision faith which we're all supposed to have. We can't.
I mean, you're saying he's the father of the faithful in the sense of being a prime example? I thought of his being father of the faithful in the covenantal sense of being patriarch of the clan.
No, because not all saved people are in the clan. You could make that an analogy. I didn't work through all the things in Romans 4 because there's a whole lot of stuff that's pulled in there. But I think essentially that being the father of the faithful means, father of would be preeminent, preeminent. And it's specifically the faith that he had before he was circumcised, which is the model. But once the covenant is specified to circumcision, then that's restricted to him. Because it's through his loins. And it's not through our loins. And wasn't through Melchizedek's. So that aspect of covenant faith is not for Melchizedek or for us. Melchizedek was supposed to trust Abraham's loins, but not his own, so to speak. And so we look back and trust Abraham's loins and the one who came from it, but not our own. So that's what I'm saying. There's faith in the broad and narrow sense. The broad sense, he's the father of all. In the narrow sense, he's not our example. We don't trust in our own circumcision and what will come from it. We have to trust in Abraham's circumcision and what came from it. So we're still looking in from the outside. We're not part of the seed people. That's why I say it's very important to get this, because it explains how Ishmael can be saved and yet be cut out. You get this impression from people that only a few people were saved before Christ and they all lived in Palestine. Repeatedly, the Old Testament keeps bringing in people from the outside who have true faith, but who don't worship at the temple, who don't eat the Passover, and who don't get circumcised. Yeah, the wise men. Balaam, although his faith wasn't true, he knew something. It explains Naaman the Syrian. That's a real hard one. Because Naaman the Syrian, he takes some of the land back with him because he wants to stay in connection with the holy ground where God has established himself. But then he's given permission to bow to Rimmon. He says, look, when I bow down to this idol here, I'm really looking through the idol to the true God. And Elisha says, okay. You work that one out. Paul wouldn't have allowed that. I think that's the distinction between the Old and New Covenant. Even the false gods were copies of the true God. And so in some sense, I don't want to go on record here permanently now, but I'll say this much, and then date it, May the 19th, 1983, and I don't want to be held to account for it all, but in some sense, because the false god is a copy of the true God, it was acceptable before Christ for the pagan to pray through that false god to the true God. To bow and have a mental reservation, to be a Jesuit. Paul would never have allowed that, and it's not allowable in the New Covenant. Probably having to do with the clearer form of the revelation and the maturation of history, to where obscurities are now clarified. That may be why. If you want a tough question, that's one of the toughies.